Alright everyone, Thursday, morning briefing, Celtic Way, Hamish, Tony, Joe, hello. How are we all getting on everyone? Are yous all well? The chat's flying today, wow. Morning Chris, morning William, morning 420 somewhere, morning Jerry, morning Tam, morning Tony.
Is the real football back yet? No? It's not back yet.
By that you don't happen to mean Steve Clarke's flamboyant swashbuckling Scotland, do you? Because they're certainly back tomorrow. Cannot wait to watch that. Oh, dear,
that's tonight for you and I, Joe. Isn't it? ITV4 tomorrow right, for you, Hamish. Yeah.
I think it's like a 4:45 kick-off. Not sure I'll be setting the alarm to watch Steve Clarke's Scotland after the summer. What about you guys? Will you be watching it?
I'll tune in, yeah. I'll watch it and see if we've learned any lessons from the debacle that was the summer. We'll not really talk about that. But yeah, you just get withdrawal symptoms, don't you, when the club football finishes and international break comes along?
Oh, yeah.
Weeping and a gnashing of teeth, and you try so hard to get up for internationals, but it's just not the same. You're just not as invested as you ever would be in your club football. But I'm speaking for myself personally. I don't know about others, but
with the most respect to Scotland, and always hope they succeed.
Yeah,
obviously being Scottish, but this time in particular reminds me of, remember when the Invincible season finished, and with that obviously fantastic finish at Hampden, the sky opens up, lightning, Tom Rogic clutching the jersey, and then the next day was one of the charity games. I think it was Henrik's Heroes and Lubo's Legends or something like that. A string of charity games, but I believe that was Celtic part the next day. They brought the trophies out. And there was a real sense. I remember walking back from the game, went out of town that evening, and it felt like that charity game felt like an extension of the season. And that real sense of, sometimes you finish a campaign and you go, that was breathtaking, but, I could go a wee break now. Not too long, but you just need to step back. Whereas everybody just wanted it to continue. This international break since Sunday, I realise we're only on Thursday here in Scotland time, but it feels like that. It feels like I didn't quite want the club football to go away. And I say that with the most respect to Steve Clarke and his Scotland side, which includes Celtic players, of course. So.
Which, just on that subject, which Scotland game took place a week after we clinched the Invincible treble at the same stadium? And it was a pretty memorable one, let's just say.
Ooh. 17. No, I'm drawing a blank.
Scotland 2, England 2, Lee Griffiths free kicks into Joe Hart.
My goodness, I don't have that in my head. I watched that in the house. I watched the second half and saw those goals with my dad, and I wouldn't have placed them anywhere near each other.
I know. Joe Hart and goals for England.
The only time I've lost my shape as a journalist in the press box and all thoughts of impartiality went out the window because some English journal had gave us it tight when Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain opened the scoring.
Yes.
And I kid you not, when we scored the first one, I was a bit of a frenzied state. But the second one, it was just all hell broke loose. Think Tasmanian Devil meets Yosemite Sam. That was your old dad here. And then when a Harry Kane equaliser, got it back in equal measure, you dish it out, you've got to take it. But it was just it remains for me, covering games as a journalist, that like 5 minutes is just like one of the most breathtaking and best I've ever experienced. Even with Celtic, I've always kept my shape watching Celtic and press boxes and stuff, and there's been, but that was just incredible. I mean, obviously spurred on by your man giving it to his tight when Oxlade-Chamberlain scored, but just completely and utterly lost it. It was brilliant, and it felt good because for the first time in many years, I acted like a fan. It felt absolutely magic. The only other time resembled that was when Rogic scored, but I wasn't in the press box that day. I was there with my nephew and my father, and my nephew said to me, "That's the first time I've ever seen you lose it completely. you know, because usually I'm quite reserved. That's what you do for a living. But it's like when Roderick scored and when Lee Griffiths scored, those two is just absolutely tonto. But I think you're allowed to, aren't you? They're both special occasions, which you'll probably never see again.
And they all, as I say, they all happened within I think it was a
week
week of each other.
Yeah, a week of each other. Yeah.
It was totally mad. I know this isn't a Scotland show, but those Griffiths free kicks for me were like one of the most crazy moments I've ever seen watching football. When have you ever seen a guy score 2 free kicks in a row inside the last 10 minutes to go level with and then go ahead of your biggest rivals? I was trying to think of like a kind of Celtic moment like that, and the closest thing would maybe be the 3-0 derby when we got the back-to-back goals, or the 6-2 game when we were 3-0 up within 10-15 minutes. But it was the fact it was 2 free kicks in a row. As we say, it was Lee Griffiths into Joe Hart as well. Bizarre.
Yeah, I think that this wasn't the same game, but I remember at the time being reminded of Nakamura against Man United, having scored against Edwin van der Sar down there, and then having scored up here 2 weeks apart. Sure, totally different games, and no way the same in that regard. But being able to beat a top class keeper with a free kick twice in quick succession. But Griffiths was, I mean, I need to watch them back. Do we think that was Hart at all to blame for them? I don't remember.
Doesn't matter. To blame them both. I used to always wind people up. I used to wind people up and say, once was lucky, twice was showboating.
Mad. Imagine you'd have gone back to 2017 and told you when those free kicks went in, right, Lee Griffiths, Joe Hart, one of them will be absolutely adored by the Celtic support, and the other we kind of, you know, we still appreciate what he did, but we don't hold him in the same regard. You would never have thought Joe Hart would have been the one you'd have been absolutely loving. It's just football. It's mad the way it works out. Listen, Scott has reminded me of something. He said, you never came on Facebook for some reason. I'm not a man to apportion blame in any way, but a certain man who may or may not be here forgot to like the Facebook today. So that's the reason we're not on the Facebook. I believe it will be sorted going forward. So apologies, Scott. Glad you found us on YouTube. Hopefully that was all right for you getting across.
Just want to flick this one up as well. That was the first cup final I was at, covering Celtic. And David Provin's free kick lingers long in the memory for a lot of Celtic supporters, mainly because of Archie's commentary just prior to it, when he said only twice before in the history of the Scottish Cup final have goals been scored direct from a free kick. Is this a little bit of history? Just teed it up nicely. Provins bends into the top corner. Archie, it is! He's just lost it as well. he just, I mean, well-rehearsed ad-libs, as I call them, because John Moxon had it when Wimbledon beat Liverpool. As soon as the final whistle went, and he said the crazy gang are beating the culture club. You know, there's no way you think of that off the top of your head. He's like kind of sitting there praying that it happened so he can say this line. And Archie did the same, just teed it up brilliantly. Provin puts the ball down and puts it in the net. It was just a brilliant free kick. I love International Week because you go down rabbit holes. It's great. And people, and I love the commenters coming in with their thoughts as well. It's brilliant, because it just throws up a myriad of memories. It's magic.
It is. It's a good time to do all that stuff, isn't it? The international break. We can probably talk about the Champions League squad if you want for a wee bit. I don't know how long we can chat about that. The point a lot of people are bringing up, Dennis, for example, talking about the main player who's been left out of our squad. It's funny because I was going down the list, going, right, who's missing here? And I couldn't actually work out if anyone was missing, which probably isn't a great look for this guy that didn't even realise he wasn't there. Owen Thiago Holm is not in the Champions League squad. He's been left out. New signings: Austin Trusty, Alex Valle, Luke McCowan, Arne Engels, Adamida, Paulo Bernardo. They're all in. Adam Montgomery's in there, guys. I guess he kind of ticks the homegrown box. Was there? What did you make of that when you saw it, Joe?
Yeah, I think it probably doesn't bode too well for Odin Thiago Holm. We've said this on this pod. We've said it on and off camera as well. There's maybe something about Holm that just hasn't quite captured the imagination. I don't think that's unfair to say. I always say this whenever I'm being critical of a Celtic player who's maybe not broken into the team, that you want to see players get time. Unfortunately, at Celtic, or teams like Celtic, you don't get an inordinate amount of time. He's maybe not had as much as other players, but he has had some. And in those moments, he's speaking personally, he's certainly not set the head of the light for me. And I think that the Champions League squad, I mean, it'd have been a surprise if some of the players that the manager had, or the club had brought in last week, weren't featuring. But it kind of underlines that intent. These are the guys that the manager wanted. These are the guys that the manager wants to take forward. And someone needs to drop out. I was similar to yourself. I looked at the lineup, and at first I couldn't think who was missing. Then I realised it was home, and then your mind starts to think it probably makes sense. You know, if someone had to drop out, I'm sure you guys will share your thoughts on home specifically. One thing I loved about the Champions League reveal was these strips. See this big white on the back with the numbers and the letter, and I'm a sucker for this font. Yeah, and someone pointed out that the hoops are still there. They're just whited out. Again, it's... I mean, I know kits aren't for everyone, but I love those wee subtleties. Gets me going.
Glad to
I
hear
quite
it.
like that as well, Joe.
Yeah.
I quite like that, because I always felt that you could... What was stopping Celtic from doing that, putting a white panel on the hoops, and then doing it like that, it just seemed... It always seemed right for it, but nobody... I mean... In the years gone past, they used to have black numbers on the hoops when I watched them in Europe, and trying to decipher them and make them out at times was ridiculous. But you know, it was. But Thiago Home, you worry for him now, don't you? In terms of what happens now, where does he go? What's the future hold? Is that a declaration of that he'll probably, you know, if when he plays, he's going to have to play domestically, isn't he? If he plays at all. Because he's not in the squad, so he just and I think a lot of people think there's ability there, but we talked about it yesterday. We're well stocked for midfielders now, and it's hard to see where he fits in those kind of games, isn't it? So a major surprise for me though that he was left out. So you have to say it was. I when you consider he took Yang, I'd be inclined maybe to have included Home rather than Yang, but that's just a personal preference for me. But but I would imagine certainly in the domestic games, then I think the manager might use them domestic games and rotate a lot. So hopefully it's not a bleak future for him, and hopefully if he does get the chance domestically, he can show that he can make his mark and still find a way and forge a decent future for himself at the club, because I still think there's talent there. But I guess the manager feels that it's not enough to make him one of his midfielders for the step up in class and step up in level. So I guess that's all down to the player, isn't it? I say it all the time. The manager lays great stock in what he sees at training. So he's clearly decided Home's not for him for the Champions League games anyway.
Yeah, TJ Lindy reckoning that he'll play more weekends when the Champions League starts. Says he's got experience playing in the McGregor role as well. It's interesting because in previous years, I could be imagining this, but I feel like in previous years there'd been a lot of chat about like 3 or 4 players missing out, whereas this year it's Odin Home is really the only one we're speaking about. I guess that shows that the squad has been trimmed, which is obviously good news. I was kind of looking at what, if it wasn't going to be Home that he left out, who else he could have left out, and obviously you're talking non-Scottish players, and I mean Naropski's maybe someone you could look at, because we've got I think 4 defenders other than him, Welsh, Scales, Trusty, Carter Vickers, but I think a couple of centre-back injuries away from potentially needing to play Naropski, so I get that.
I think that was a belt and braces job, because remember what happened at Ivor first game last season when Lager, Bielka and Scales played. So I think he just to be sure type thing, and just thought, right, I'll put him in just in case, because when everything's going so well, you're waiting on the the butt clause, aren't you? You're waiting on the punch in the nose. You're waiting on the bit of bad luck to come your way, because you just think it's all going too well. Where's the bump in the road? Where's the roadblock? That kind of thing. So, not wishing it upon Celtic, but you just kind of, it's in the back of your mind, isn't it?
Yeah, Yang was the other one I thought of, Tony, but I'm thinking probably the lack of wingers and the fact there's only 4 other wingers for 2 positions, and wingers can quite easily get injured, and you're maybe even viewing Maida as a striker maybe at some stage, possibly, hopefully not, but possibly that might have kept Yang in the squad as well. So yeah, I think Home probably is the one I would have left out, if I'm totally honest. He's now got 5 players ahead of him, quite obviously, guys. I must say I'm not convinced we're going to see him too often. I just think I don't think Brendan Rodgers is a big fan of him, or certainly not as big a fan as some of the other names we've got there. And as I say, there's you're looking at 5 players now being ahead of him. So I'm concerned about Odin Holm's future at Celtic. I could be wrong. He might feature in league games. He might still go on to become a big player for us. But I've never actually watched him. I've seen him do good things here and there, but I've never watched Home play for a match and gone, that was a performance that's convinced me. I think he kind of comes in and out of games, does the odd wee thing, probably doesn't do enough for me. Although I must say, I've probably seen him play half a dozen times, if I'm honest, Joe.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, just showing that character on the pitch, it kind of reminds me of when Ryan Christie broke into the team in 2018, Brendan Rodgers' last season. It was a European game before that League Cup semi-final. The opponent escapes me now, but Christie had come back from that season long. It might have been Leipzig, yeah. It would have been Leipzig, yeah. And Christie had come back from that season-long loan at Aberdeen, and 25 years old, kind of pushing the age where, thinking that he's left it too long to make his mark at Celtic, and he might have been heading for the door. And I remember him just energetic all over the pitch, and it felt like what you're saying there, that this was a performance that was starting to pave the way for something. And who knew what the future held at that point, but you could see the rumblings of something coming good. That Hearts game at Murrayfield in the League Cup semi-final, he's got a big hand in all 3 goals. He scores the only goal that wins the League Cup final, and the rest is history for Christie at Celtic. With Home, maybe doesn't need that level of introduction, but I've personally not seen anything yet where I've thought, yeah, this is the one. And it's all circumstantial, I suppose. Possibly totally different position, obviously, but maybe you could be saying the same about Liam Scales this time last year. As you say, Tony comes into the squad as a bit of an anomaly. The player himself has said that he didn't expect to be anywhere near that position. He was looking at where his next loan move was and trying to work out his own future. You just can't see, and you would like to hope that the same situation, you never want to see players get injured, but there are so many players ahead of Home now that would be a real catastrophe if the same situation were to present itself for Home. And otherwise, unless needed in that way, I can't see him getting into Brendan Rodgers' side, because I think we would have seen him before now.
I mean, you can't turn it around. Scales is living proof of that. But as you say,
you need an opportunity.
You need an opportunity, and it would take an incredible set of circumstances that led to the fortune that Liam Scales got for that to happen. You don't want that to happen. And I guess that, the manager did tell him, didn't he, after the Queen's Park game, him and Bosun Lawal, that they needed to do more. And one of them signed for Stoke City in the window. The other one's still here. But, it looking like that their game time could be limited, because you don't even see domestically how he's going to oust some of those guys that are in front of him. And I know, and even then, when the manager rotates, he's going to use others, isn't he? I'm thinking particularly Luke McCowan. Yeah, personally, and from what I've been reading and what I've seen of Luke McCowan, I said it yesterday, I think Luke McCowan will be the surprise package of all the signings. And I got dug up yesterday because I called Arnie Engels. So I've been told to get it
Who
right.
Dug you up?
Oh,
Derek Ray.
They missed nothing. They missed nothing on this, but I consulted Ryan, who consulted Derek Ray, I'm told it's Engels. It's not Engels. And
Yeah,
I was
Engels.
working on
Engels.
Yeah, I was working on the premise that in German, he's not German, he's Belgian. But I was just, because he played in German football, had it in my head. The G in German is pronounced as K. So that's where my pronunciation came from. But I'm reliably informed from Derek Ray, the doyen of German football, who knows everything and knows all the pronunciations, that it's Engels. Not Engels, Engels. So sorry if I upset people and offended people by calling them Enkels on the broadcast. Didn't mean to. I was just being informed myself. So there you go. Hopefully that squares it all up, Hamish, and we can get on with life. And thank you for everybody for pointing that out. Appreciate it. They miss nothing. They're an astute bunch on this Celtic Way platform.
Yes. I think England, Engels. Is that kind of how it works? Engels, England. I know it's not Engels, but the G part of it.
The G's not pronounced, so it's Engels.
Okay.
It's not a hard G. So
fantastic.
Yeah. Derek Ray's the man. He knows these things. So
yes.
I will go with him.
Joe, we've not even had your thoughts on Sunday yet, have we? So let us know what you made of that.
It was all right, wasn't it? It was all right. Yeah. I may or may not have watched it back a few times since. It's funny with perspective, and apologies, I've not tuned into the morning briefing as much as I wanted this week. I've been a wee bit unwell. But so if I'm repeating things that you guys have said, you'll need to forgive me. But there was all that talk about Celtic being a little bit under pressure in the opening 10 minutes, and watching it live, I felt the same. And watching it back, as I say, I may or may not have watched the full game back since once or twice. It doesn't, once you know how things are going to unfold, I don't even know if it was 10 minutes. And I don't even know that Celtic were under that much pressure either.
No.
Just, and that is with it's with the broader picture. It is how Rangers, I think, had to approach the game. I certainly think that if they weren't attacking the game, they had to meet Celtic further up the pitch, just given the circumstances, given the 100% Celtic crowd, given how Celtic are playing just now. And they did that for a little bit and then seemed to get spooked by the goal that was disallowed for reasons unknown, to be quite honest. And obviously it didn't make too much of a difference. But yeah, it was a comprehensive win, and also it was great to see some of the new faces as well. I know that you guys will have dissected this over the last few days, but I'm sure we're kind of singing from the same hymn sheet in the sense of, that was the only thing that kind of surprised me when you look back in that opening spell where at the time I thought we were a little bit under the cosh, but watching it back, knowing how it was going to unfold, it wasn't anywhere near as alarming as I felt. Yeah. It's quite surprising because it's quite nice to have that. Yeah.
I have to say, a lot's been made of this opening 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. There's been straws being clutched at from various people from the other side of the city. And you're saying to yourself, and everybody tells you, a game lasts 90 minutes. And they forced Celtic back. Brendan Rodgers mentioned it in his press conference where the press wasn't as high or as good in the opening 10-minute spell, but Kasper Schmeichel never had a save to make. And they had a couple of chances which have since been shown would have been flagged for offside.
Yep.
Well, we hope they would have. You never know the way it was going. They might, but so I'm kind of find it a bit unfathomable how 10 minutes can morph into something that there wasn't much between the two teams. As I've said before, I don't deal in XG. I deal in AG, actual goals. Celtic scored 3, Rangers scored none, and Celtic missed umpteen chances where it could have been 4, 5, 6. That's undeniable. You can skew the stats narrative and you can skew the opening 10 minutes narrative all you like. Celtic bossed that game. Somebody presents me with a stat sheet and says, but that's actually not the case. I don't care. I know what I watched. I know what I saw. I saw Bernardo being a man of the match by a country mile. I saw McGregor not that far behind him. I saw Johnston being excellent. I saw Kyogo being excellent. I saw Maeda being excellent. So if somebody's going to turn and say to me, but actually, their stats, I'm going to say, well, don't pay too much attention to that kind of stuff, because you can skew a stats narrative whatever you want. As I say, expected goals don't impress me much. Actual goals do, and the actual score, I think you'll find, was Celtic 3, Rangers 0. Over 90 minutes. No 10, no 15, no 20, over 90. And that, to me, was a resounding, convincing win. And as Joe said, it was quite good. As good things go, it was quite good, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think there's no doubt to me that Celtic were unsettled in the first 10 minutes. I think we saw a couple of players passing the ball out the park. Carter Vickers did it. Hatate, I think, was the other one who just passed out the park. That doesn't normally happen. Rangers were pressing us, but it took one moment of brilliance from Callum McGregor to run past Diamandi. He switched off for a second. 6 Rangers players were out the picture, and suddenly Kuhn was running through. And I know that I think that could and should have been a goal. It wasn't, but that changed the game for me. It put doubt into their minds. It gave us all the confidence we needed. So yeah, and other than that, we were.
See if that's given us goal of the season for me.
Yeah, it was
because
fabulous.
Of the quickness
It excites me so much. See the Champions League, the Champions League, that quick, incisive football. That because teams are going to leave gaps like that in the Champions League. The idea for me of Maeda, Kuhn, Kyogo. Oh God! I'm so excited to see those guys in the Champions League.
Yeah,
so excited.
I mean, building up to the game, and I mentioned this when we're doing the transfer window pod late on Friday. At this end, like the word that the captain kept using, building up, was slick, and it's been a joy to see how slick the football has been. Every time he says it, it sends a shiver up my spine, and that was it on the opening stages throughout the whole game. But after we kind of weathered that rough patch, and as you say, that moment where he steps by Diamandi. I mean, to play devil's advocate, hearing a lot of the statistical chat coming from Philip Clement after the game, I suppose that is what he has to work with at the moment. It's just that projecting it in such a public fashion in the wake of such a sensitive game in terms of a defeat, it plays into a lot of Celtic fans' hands, and certainly upsets the fans that he's playing for. That's surely stuff he needs to be presenting behind the scenes, in my opinion. But I think everything just seems to be going the right way. And as you say, like, teams are a lot less likely to sit in the way that Rangers ultimately did. I mean, that was talk about possession stats. A lot of people have rightly kind of clipped this up and shared it on social media, where Rangers were playing a lot of the ball about the box, and Celtic had no need to press the game and waste energy at that time. And that's that whole Brendan Rodgers calling for patience in his press. And I actually thought, again, this is more watching the game back, like, I thought we talk a lot about counter press in the modern game. I thought Rangers' counter press was actually all right. It's just that Celtic's counter of that was just phenomenal. I mean, I know that a lot has been made about Dyson Maeda in that moment that he wins the ball back for Callum McGregor's goal. That was the epitome of it. But I actually thought that, in my opinion, at times Rangers were pressing Celtic. It's just that Celtic were just so strong and able to press that back even further, which is only... I mean, I sound like I'm giving credit to Rangers. For me, it's not even about that. It's about how do you adapt to a team that's trying to do it to you. And Celtic were just so good at it last Sunday. And yeah, that should bode well for the Champions League. I'm really excited about that now.
But you even saw players like Kyogo doing it. I mean, there was that one where Kyogo sprinted about 50 yards.
Yeah.
And I think it was Liam Scales won the sliding tackle. Yeah. You know, and they've just bought into what the manager wants them to do. And he's spoken about it. He's spoken about the press, and he's spoken about the guys being able to make on-field decisions without looking to their manager. Sussing out the game and knowing what's happening, and just, as you say, you trust them now to work it out for themselves what's happening, and then stick to your own footballing principles, and it will work. What we're doing will work. You'll be successful, but you have to bide your time and wait in the moments. And when those moments come, you've got to pick them off and be slick. As you said, Joe, and that goal, that disallowed goal, that was that was one such moment, wasn't it? Because it took one thing, and as Hamish said, 6 guys were out of position or were taken out, and 2 passes later, Kyogo scoring the goal, and you're thinking to yourself, and that does excite you, Hamish, that the thought that they could do that. I spoke about yesterday the goal against Bayer Leverkusen, wasn't it? When it was a long ball for the goalkeeper, a touch from James Forrest, wasn't it? Inside, back, then out to Jota, who buried it. And when you saw a goal like that, you were like, oh man, that's just a brilliant counter-attacking goal. But you see that in this team now. You can see this team doing that away from home, and that excites you, and you think to yourself, great, we're finally getting a bit of confidence about the fact that not only can you go away, but you're actually going to be a threat. You're going to score goals because of the way you're playing and the way you're set up to play. And every member of that team's bought into it and knows their job and knows what they're doing. So hopefully, as I say, it can transition domestically into the Champions League.
Was it 2 weeks today? We got underway against Slovan Bratislava at Celtic Park. That's going to be magic. Bit of pressure on us that game, but win that and you can really go into the small matter of Signal Iduna Park and Borussia Dortmund with 3 points under your belt. Just on the topic of Champions League, a few commenters talking about it. Celtic women won the game yesterday. You might remember we mentioned that they'd gone behind yesterday and against the Finnish side, KUPS, KUPS. We came back to win 3-1. A hat-trick from Saoirse Noonan. Went to extra time. She scored the first one, obviously, before that, and then 2 in extra time. So we're through to Saturday's final, where we'll play Gintra, a Lithuanian team. The tournament's actually been held in Lithuania. The wee mini tournament, they won 5-0 yesterday against Ameni Noi of Moldova. So it's an away game for us on Saturday, but without knowing a great deal about Gintra, obviously they're not bad if they've won 5-0, but you would kind of think maybe Celtic women would fancy that one. So that's on Saturday, so we might have both of our teams in the Champions League this year, which would be fantastic. I was going to make a couple of comments before we go. I'm going to do this very quickly. Chris, which Celts got an international call this time around? So I've got the squad in front of me, guys. Kasper Schmeichel, Alistair Johnson, Liam Scales, Austin Trusty, Lewis Palmer I've not seen, but I assume he's away with Honduras. Adamida. We had Sinizalos away with Finland. Odin Thiago Holmes away with Norway's 21s, I believe. Arne Engels is away with Belgium. Paulo Bernardo's away with Portugal's 21s. Daizen Maida and Real Hatate are away with Japan. And I think that's Anthony Ralston. And I think that's us. So hopefully that's cleared it up for you, Chris. And finally, Dave, guys, how far do you think we can go in the Champions League this year? I'm saying knockouts. I'm saying that we'll make the knockouts and then, as we typically do, fail when it gets to an actual knockout match. But I'd probably take that right now, so if you sign me up for that.
I'd be happy with that. I think that I would love to think that it's this year is, want to go as far as possibly can. Make the playoffs, make the knockouts, and I would be happy this season as well. I think it hopefully sets a precedent. And this encompasses everything in terms of future transfer windows, the manager's dedication or commitment to making inroads in Europe. I'm kind of hoping that we do as well as we can this year, but it also sets the tone moving forward. So, yeah, I'm hoping that it's positive enough to inspire not just this campaign, but the next one and the next one after that. And obviously, you need to win the league to do that as well. So, I think it's massive. I think it's really, really big for Celtic to perform, and I hope that that's to the knockouts.
I share your sentiments, but I'm going to just put a tin lid in it and say Slovan Bratislava. I'm not thinking any further than that. And getting it off to a flyer and just taking it from there. That's the game that can really set your tone for the Champions League. And we've been here before and it's turned out to be a bit of a damp squib, but I just get a feeling that Celtic can. And you said there Hamish, they're under a lot of pressure. See, if you're a professional footballer, that's the pressure you want.
Yeah.
As a supporter, it's that pressure you crave at that top level of elite club football. Bring that on, and just, if you're talking about the Champions League, you just got to focus all your attention into winning that first game. Because you win that first game, you're giving yourself a real good chance of doing something in that Champions League phase. And I think that's what the manager will be drumming into the players as well. Got to get that first win under your belt, get the place rocking, get people scared to come to Celtic Park again, and also get that confidence boost that we know we're taking on the Champions League runners-up from last season and the Europa League winners back-to-back in the next two. But if you can get off to a flyer, then that confidence boost and surge you'll get, and the players will feel that they belong at that level, then that can take you far as well.
Yeah, we're going to go into overdrive if we win that opening game, Celtic Park. I don't care if it's only Slovan Bratislava. Celtic Park is going to be absolutely jumping if we go ahead in that game. And personally, guys, I can't wait for it. Right, my light has just died, so that's probably the cue for me and us to head off. Thanks once again for chatting about Celtic. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. The numbers are... I've just looked and there's 666 people watching. Is that not the sign of the devil or something like that? I don't really keep up with these things, but something bad is going to happen to me now. Maybe I'm going to be subjected to 90 minutes of Steve Clark football. Maybe that's the bad thing that's going to happen. Anyway, enjoy that game, Scotland v Poland later. Mateusz Boguts might feature for Poland in that one. Not that it's of much interest to us. Right, going to head off. We will return tomorrow to do it all again, everyone. Speak to you then.